Okay, so I hope you can hear me now. 1, 2, 3. Yeah. And I have to reduce my own noise because I hear myself at the moment. So, great. Okay, a lot of questions already in the chat. Hey everyone, great to see you today. I hope you enjoyed your fantastic week and now today you are ready for some Flutter development. Hey Minu, hey Agamond, Gilmary, nice to see you. Great stuff. So, hey Deepak. For you, I have my water prepared. Thanks already. So we are ready to go. Acham. All right. Yeah, I already read some questions of yours. It's beginning with the easy ones. So if this is a beginner's course, usually yes. I'm sometimes a bit fast, but I try to read the chat all time. So whenever you have questions or I'm too fast, you are always welcome to give me a break right inside. Hey, be a bit slower. Take your time. I try to be as expressive as possible, so I talk mostly about what I'm writing, and I have a new tool that I would like to test, but that seems like it doesn't work already, so that's a bit unfortunate, but maybe the next time. Also, we have now Nightbot in the chat, so say hi to Nightbot. So we can write polls and stuff like that, and that's pretty amazing. 6 months loyal badge. Hey Minu, that's quite a challenge. Congratulations. Yeah, then what we will do with a state management tool, I have no idea. I had some thinking on what I can do whenever I create a live stream, and I know we had like a live stream for animations. Reasons I don't want to do that today is because I want to take first a deep dive into how, for example, forgot the name of the tool now, but how that works, and after that I will come to a live stream with that. And in the meantime I thought, hey, let's work on an app together. And when I was a student I always worked with a Flashcard app, and I found out that they are pretty expensive nowadays, and thought, hey, why not create one in Flutter and make it possible that we can, for example, add things into these flashcards via Google Docs maybe, or Google Spreadsheets. That means we use Google Spreadsheets as a database. That is at least my idea at the moment. And we want to display flashcards. And if I want to learn something like a new language, I can first read it, flip the card, and then press on, yep, I understood it, or no, not yet. And depending on which side I'm moving it, we put it in one of the categories. So like 1 till 5, if it's in level 5, you know it already. If it's in level 1, you need to listen it more and more. There are also very interesting algorithms around it. At least I found a lot of readings for that reason. And I think it is something that would be very interesting for you and for me to take a deep dive and understand a bit more about it. Okay, let's go is already written. Yep, I think let's do it. Let's jump into code. I was so free this time and don't start with a design or anything. I just want to write real code. So please show screen design if you have. I don't have a design yet. So what we could do is first we can create one for ourselves so that we really go into Figma and write it ourselves. But I'm not that strong in designing. We could also check out if we find a design ready for us on Dribble or something like that and try to write it down. That would be the ideas that we have. Hey Robert, nice to see you. Yeah, so let's begin maybe with the basics and create our first Flutter project and give our Flutter project a name. That's weird. Didn't I click on the... yeah, now. Cool. I will take the correct path to my Flutter, because as you see I have already a lot of different Flutter installations in my system requirements. So I take the default one from tools, and now we can create a project name. Make sure that you always have underscores between the names, and we call it just Flutter, or do we have a good name? I don't have a good name yet. So do you have some ideas for good names for a flashcard app where we can learn and connect it with Google Docs? Let's name it for now Flutter Flash. Oh, I like that one. Flutter Flash. Do we have more option? What do you think? Oh, hey, Abby, thank you very much. Great stuff. The stream already begins on the hot phase. So Flashcard app connected with Google Spreadsheets. One more thing maybe. I would like to make this an open source application so that is completely for free for everyone, not only to support and work on the app, but also on the other side to support on it, but also to just load it for free and use it for free for yourself. So I don't want to earn any money with it so far. So we do it under my domain at the moment. The Android language will be Kotlin because I know it a bit better than Java, and we have iOS where I take Swift. I keep it like it is. Also, I would like to add the macOS and web location because it would be amazing to have it on all platforms, and why not trying it directly. Flash Store is also a good name, but store sounds a little bit like I want to sell something. And Flash Store, I don't know, store and depending on state management. What I would like to do, and I think that's a good idea, let's call that something special, something like, I don't know, Flashcard project with a very easy name. And whenever you come, and the next time when we have the live stream, we will look into the YouTube comments that you give. And we just look for the most upvoted name for the flashcard, and that will be the name that we use. Is that okay? I think that would be amazing. So all your ideas are down in the comments, not in the chat, in the comments. And then afterwards, we give it the name in the next stream. I think that is a very good option. Or maybe you can... No, yeah, I think that's the best option. Flashy, also cool. What is Flashy? Flashy by Flutter? Yeah, coding is easy, true. So there are two things that are always difficult in programming. That's naming and designing. I think this is the stuff where most of us are getting real problems. Okay, so let's finish that. And with that, we are using Android Studio. If you don't know it, it's one of the tools where you can work inside. The other one is Visual Studio. And I just prefer Android Studio. There is no real reason why you shouldn't use Visual Studio Code, but just that you know. Cool. Okay, so now we have our project set up, and as I said, we want to make it open source. So for that, we want to go to GitHub and share the project immediately so that I don't even start to write code just for myself. And what you can see, I just use it in Android Studio, where I can enter the repository name. It will just be Flashcard project for now, and I can give a short description what we want to achieve. But at the moment, I just keep it empty and press share. And what happens is Android Studio will create a Git repository for me inside of GitHub, and it will also initialize the whole project with Git. As you can see, all these files are at the moment red, and it asks me how should I call the first commit message. I give it initial commit. And what we can see, the git ignore is already prepared from Flutter thanks to the project settings, and we can just add all of that. So now I have to make the chat a bit bigger for me because I'm a blind guy. So Flash Store, it's hard to give it name. Cool. I have thought about Git Copilot. At the moment, I'm using Tab9 actually, but there is no real reason to not try it out. I hear there are still a lot of flaws and creates more bugs at the moment that it really helps you with coding. But I think everyone has to decide that for himself. At the moment, I am not even in the Copilot beta phase, I think. So it's difficult. Any reason why I use Android Studio and not IntelliJ? No, not really. It's just I have IntelliJ license, but at the moment I just have Android Studio installed, and it's just yeah, lightweight at the moment. So no real reason for that. If you would like, or if you would create a pure Dart project, I would recommend you to use IntelliJ, because if you are using pure Dart, Android Studio does not support you with Dart development pure. Good. Okay, so now we have that done, and as I said, I want to make that as open sourcey as possible. What I will do is creating in the settings. There are some possibilities, and we have it. Was it not in options? Let me check quickly. Discussions, projects. But there is also the possibility to add contributions buttons and informations. But I think I have to search that first, and I think it makes no sense to do that immediately. But with contributions MD file, we can specify, hey people, this project is open source. If you would like to contribute, please, just share your code with us. Cool. Another thing that I would like to do is adding a license, because if you don't you add a license for open source projects, usually this gives some problems. And now let me see. I think we can add here a file, create file. And if we call that license, or better, I can just copy that over from somewhere else. No, I don't. I want to see that now. I know that there are some templates for these things. Like here we have these templates, we have sponsorship, discussions. But was there not also the possibility to add GitHub pages, change visibility, manage access? Actions, environments, secrets, pages, moderations. No, that is not what I want. Okay, let's ask Google. So add license to GitHub. Perfect. So create new file. It's just taking it from the, and if the name is license MD, then it takes it. Okay, I thought. Good. So we have to rename the name as license MD. And as you can see, we get here already the button for choose a license template. And as you see, there are a lot of different licenses depending on what you need. For me, usually I take the MIT license, which takes me out of liabilities and warranties, but it allows everything. Like you can use it commercially, modifications are allowed, distributions and private use. So this I will just put inside and review and submit. And this is totally fine for me, and commit. And that was a bit weird because what I could do, I just committed to master. Another thing that I don't like about if you are working with the IntelliJ at the moment, you can see that there is master branch, and the master branch is outdated. We usually call it now main. So inside of our branches, we change the name from master to main branch, just to be a bit with the real way. So it just mentions that the name has changed of the main branch. And now inside of our project, we have to take care of that, because as you can see down here, or if I press Command V, if we go to branches, we can see that we have currently the master branch and only the other master branch from the remote. But to get now all the informations from GitHub, we can press Command T, or what I also can do is go inside of here and say update. Where is it? Update project. Here, Command T or update project. And you can find it also up here in the Git and can say pull. Is there anything with Command T, pull, update project? Here it is. So if I press that, it will ask me if I should merge it or rebase. I usually go with rebase, but it's the option that you use in your Git project, and it can vary between projects. Okay, so I press OK, and what you can see is it cannot update at the moment because the master branch is not existing anymore. We call it now main. But what happened between is a fetch. So this fetch here will make sure that we have now all the information that we got from the remote. And one idea is the main part. So we can check this out. So MIT, I guess, inside. What do you mean, Minu? And regarding state management, I have not made myself any ideas yet, so we can decide that together if you want. Actually, I want to go with the block pattern just to see how it works, and if we get some troubles with it, we can stop using it. But actually, I don't want to invest too much time in which project state management, just using the first thing that comes to my mind and keep with it. If you have other ideas, we can of course take a look into them. Good, so now we have a basic license, and this project is already pretty good to go for provider. Yeah, we can use also provider. And this project is now already pretty good to go with open sourcing. So as you can see, we have an MIT license, and if we have some wishes, we can create issues. Thanks to GitHub, we have also the projects part where we can now create a project and things like that. Have you gone through? Ah, you called me, Mino. That I didn't know. I thought with @sign you want to talk with someone. No, I have not gotten into it deeper. The reason for it is just time, to be honest. Sorry for that. Yeah, it's always a bit difficult to come into these parts, but I really like the idea that @sign has created with the new protocol, I think, and they really create an interesting part. Where is that? This @sign? Yeah, probably you will have the link for it. Okay, so but now let's have a look what we can create. So if we go to Dribbble, for example, which is always a website where you can get like ideas of how you want to develop something, but you only can get ideas. You are not allowed to copy something from it. So you can, for example, go for Flashcard. And just to get some ideas what we could create or how it could look like. And as you see, there is actually not so much there. Like this would be maybe something that we could have. Like, hey, Aditya, or Mr. Sutar. And as you can see, this would be an idea that I would like to have. Like we have something that we want to learn, and maybe an amount of different flashcards, and we can flip the card and we go to the next card. But besides of next card, I would like to have the choice between I understood what is on the card and I did not understood. And depending on which, we will move it to another section. But this comes very close to it, and I think it would be also awesome to have these card animation where we swip or flip the card. I think that would be pretty awesome. So maybe here that, yeah, that looks already more like it. Like we have these flashcards, we get like, I think there is Av written on it. So we have I don't know and I know, and depending on which I click, we get the correct answer. Ha! Can you see that, Mino? You can post a link into the chat. Who would have guessed that? Okay, but the idea is clear. And on the other side, we want to have Google Spreadsheets as a database, more or less. So if we create a spreadsheet, my idea would be something like, can maybe show you what I think. So we create a blank part here, and we would have like two headlines where one of them is, for example, German, and on the other one, English. And then I can write the German word like hello and the English word hello. And with that, we would create our first card. Like this would be one card. The benefit of that would be I can enter here on the right side whatever I want. Like I can create lists, right? I think spreadsheets allows there a lot of different things like hello, and can I multiline that? I think so. Ah, yeah, exactly. So something like that. And then we can have multi-lines, we can create also different text colors maybe and things like that. And the idea, yeah, I miss Stefan too. I don't know, but I hear that he is pretty healthy at the moment, so all good. So that would be the idea. So we have the headline where we can have different colors or whatever. But for each user, he can create a spreadsheet like this. So learning English, for example. And this would be the name of the set of flashcards. And then inside of it, we can have X different flashcards. And what we could also do is if we have inside of our Google Sheets, I'm not sure, I think we have also somewhere like Yeah, the Google Drive, here we go, sorry. And what we could also do is, oh, that's the wrong, learning English, there, yeah. So what we could do is creating a folder that we could call, for example, learning English. And then inside of this folder, we would have this Google spreadsheet. And this one we would call then, for example, lesson 1. And so now we have a folder structure that shows us the different, skills that you can learn. And inside of these folder structures, you have the different lessons that we can now fulfill with live. So with that, we could also have like, instead of learning English, we could have learning engineering. And also in this learning engineering, we would have then again a spreadsheet with the different sections. So that would be my idea. You can look into Riverpod. Yes, I can. Hey, what state management and architecture will you use? I have not thought about so much about these two things, but I think it makes sense to maybe start with these. We have localization for that. Is that so, Minu? Because if you think about it, I need to know what we want to learn, right? Localization does not help me if I want to give the user the possibility to enter whatever he likes. So at the moment, of course, we don't want to localize our app with spreadsheets. What we want is we want to give possibilities to learn. Like this could be not only German and English, this could be, for example, also hint. And the other thing would be engineering parts. So, and then you have like engine. And on the other side, you have parts that is important for an engine, like, I don't know, combustion engine. Or you have nowadays not only combustion engines, you have also electric engines and so on and so forth. So what I want to say is this is not a localization. This is important. This is just the flashcards, like any flashcards that you can have. And the only thing is that I have for the first example, the German and the English wording. But on the other side, it could be whatever we want. We could also use Firebase, but think about it, then it is not possible for every user to create it for himself. So what I want to do is that if you, for example, want to use this flashcard program, you can download the source code, and without going into something complicated like Firebase, you are able to create your own lessons for it. So that is very important because it should be open source and easy accessible for everyone. Of course, I could also do that inside of the app, like you can create out of the app different spreadsheets and things like that. But at the moment, I would keep it as simple as possible. So my idea would be to take Google Spreadsheets and write inside of there the different possibilities. Because if you want now, for example, to create your own set of flashcards, you could use spreadsheets for that. Makes that sense? Piece +1. Google is actually a great idea. You can insert a list of words and you can add a translation extension to translate the words. Yep, exactly. And everyone can use it, right? That's my main focus of that. So spreadsheets, everyone knows it and everyone can immediately create one. So that would be one option. Another option would be that we have, if we make a Mac or a Linux or Windows application, that we create behind the scenes maybe a CSV file, and you can create in the CSV files the same structure more or less. And I think it's even possible to export them as CSV, right? If I have that right in mind. Yeah, comma separated values. So CSV files. That means instead of you have like these spreads that are looking beautiful, it would be like a comma separated list of these things. I did not try that yet. Let's have a look. So we go into GitHub and I press point. Ah, the web editor. Yeah, I used that actually. And as you can see, it's supported by VS Code. So we have now the full code. That's pretty awesome that with Dot you get all this part into it. That's pretty awesome. Thank you, Minu. Is it like StackBlitz? Yeah, it's close to it. I think we cannot let it run, or if it would be a web project, can we directly let it run? Wow, you can save it. It's really the whole editor inside. It's crazy. Yeah, so as you can see, Visual Studio Code is everywhere. So let's see if I'm coming back again to my own project. Yeah, that also works. Cool. Okay, so we have the general idea and we have made it a little bit open sourcey. And what we can do now is maybe just start with something. And what we would need is like some CSV that we can read. So what I would like to do is have like test data at the moment. We'll just call it test data. And just to mock my first lesson, I will write here lesson 1, or better, I will create the whole thing. So how did we call it? Learn English, right? I have to create a new folder inside, which we call Learn English. And inside of that, we would have the file lesson 1, and we call it CSV for now. But of course, it can be anything else. So, and just to make sure that we understand what we want to reach, so we would have, oh cool, there is a plugin for that. Excel Reader Rainbow CSV. I think I take the first one. So with that, we get even like a spreadsheet inside. That would be pretty interesting. So let's see if that worked. Table editor. Ha, great. So what that means is we can now enter here, for example, our German and English. And inside of our second, we have hello, and hello. So, and because I can export the spreadsheets also like CSVs, with this we can directly test if our idea is working actually, without to connect now directly spreadsheets and bring everything to run. And we can see, okay, this is how the spreadsheet would look like. So it's not much work to adapt it to a browser, but yeah, I think GitHub really, or anything that works with VS Code invests a lot of money into it and make it as fast as possible. But thanks to Microsoft, everything is open, so everyone can use it, and that is pretty amazing for that. I'm pretty happy with that. Okay, out of performance reasons, I will now start with macOS development, and let's see how far we're coming with that. Because whenever we it could be that we run into some problems with, I don't know, reading the files, getting some other issues, and hey, Microsoft, yeah. And depending on that, we will see if we can only create an app or if we can create it with macOS and so on and so forth. So, okay, if you have never seen a Flutter project, it usually looks like this. So we can maybe make this a bit bigger on the left. So in this Flutter project, you have different folders like Android, iOS, macOS, and web. All of them are target clients. You know, we want to have Flutter in Android running, in iOS, in macOS, and web. So all of them get their own folders because they need to create specifically. So if you're on a Windows machine, you will get probably a Win folder too. And for Linux, the same thing. And if we go inside of it, this is a whole project. And if you don't know macOS or iOS, you can see this XC workspace. We can open it up with Xcode and write inside of it. So if we don't want to have Flutter at all, we could create also our own applications in iOS and macOS, but also for Android. And as you can see, if I open that one up, you can see all the files that are native Android. Okay, and what all of them have in common is that they under the hood use Flutter. And that means in our lib folder, we have Dart. And Flutter consists mostly of Dart. And inside of here, you will find all the source code that actually will be running inside of the different native applications. So whenever you code something here, it's getting later compiled into the different levels. And then at the end, Dart is executed on the real device. Okay, Another thing that's maybe important is the analysis options. Nowadays, you don't have to do all that yourself anymore. We have now the Flutter YAML file inside of it already, and we can define different rules, but we don't have to anymore. Did I try Windows 11? Actually, I did not. I tried to upgrade my computer, but as most of my machines, the Windows 11 is not supported because I have an old Intel i6 6600K or something and not supported. It's only 4 years old, so I'm very disappointed by Microsoft at the moment, but yeah. Flutter plugins are not free and moreover web is not stable. Why you choose Flutter over React? There is interesting that you think Flutter plugins are not free. There are of course paid ones, but let's say React has that too. And web is not stable. I know that they put that now into stable branch, but why I choose Flutter over React is probably Dart language. At my work, I'm working mostly with React Native at the moment, and yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of JavaScript, and with that, I have already very good reasons why I don't want to use React. And also, if you don't use TypeScript, and even if you use TypeScript, it is very hard to bring new people inside of the language. If you as a developer are very smart, or you have some people who are even smarter, they usually try to write perfect, nice code, but it's so hard to read. And in JavaScript, it's nearly impossible to track down all the things that someone thought. What does that mean is, for example, because you don't have models and entities and stuff, you don't even know what you are working with. And if you're not into TypeScript and you don't be very cautious with TypeScript, you don't know what is behind the things. And if someone uses everywhere unknown or any, you get a lot of troubles. And I have only problems with that so far. Is JS can be used for... What is a lifecycle method called when get back from screen 2 to screen 1? Wait, I was moved now. Really wanted to get your opinion on GetX. People who have used it for medium projects says it's really hard to maintain their code. Any experience or opinions? I talked that already a lot. I'm not the biggest fan of GetX. That's the reason I have no video about it on my channel so far, even though that the community around it is really big and people are really into GetX. I have my problems with it. The reason mostly is I feel like it is a bit of jQuery. And if you know GetX and we just go to the pub.dev page of it, it is ridiculous what it tries to fulfill with their package. So what you can see, it provides state management. I think they want to make dependency management, navigation, and so on and so forth. So they have a ton of things that they put in one single package. The problem with dependencies is always you have to maintain it, and if they are not getting maintained anymore, you are like trapped in this dependency. You need to use it overall. I think it is super easy to learn and also even super easy to use. A lot of these things make a lot of sense to just directly use it. The issue is if you rely on one single dependency for all, you have to rely on it your whole lifetime. So if something breaks inside of this dependency, you have to fix it or someone else has to fix it, and you get a lot of troubles there. So I'm usually not a big fan. If you know jQuery, that was the package that was in my time when I was a JavaScript developer. Everywhere, it was really everywhere. And the problem with it, it was a dependency. Nobody really liked it. JavaScript was sooner or later nearly as close to it, and nobody really needed jQuery anymore. But it is a hell lot of work to remove jQuery out of the different coding bases at the end. So, hey, can you let me know what lifecycle method called when... Okay, lifecycle methods is a bit tricky because it's hard to explain. There are not so much of them. So the build method is the main one, right? So build is always called whenever something re-renders. It's like in React Native, if you change some value, you call set state or you change the state, this build method gets a re-trigger actually. So that's the easy example. But then we have also some override methods that we have inside of each widget. So if we go for override methods, we can see them pretty easily. And it seems they are not there. So talked again and didn't previously checked it. That's because it is a stateless widget, which always getting completely rebuilt. But if we do that into a stateful widget, we have also some other parts that is inside of the app state. And these parts are, for example, did update widget is there. We have, I think, a mounted, we have init state, which is the first method that executes. We have dispose, which tells us that this state gets removed from the widget, and so on and so forth. And you can read about them more on the Flutter documentation, but it is actually pretty easy to understand, because if you think about it, the init state is of course the first thing that happens when the state is ever activated, and dispose is when it's getting removed. I hope this was what you mean, else feel free to ask me once more. JavaScript can be used for front and backend, and Dart also. And Dart is a pretty strong language in the backend actually. They have really good solutions there. So can really recommend you to take a look actually. And I am now a bit foreseeing because the video is at the moment in post-production, but I have created a video about Dart Shelf where we create a very basic web server, and I was very happy with it. So then what do we have else? You totally agree, that's amazing. The issue of customizing Flutter, what do you say? Customizing Flutter UI, I had never issues to customize the Flutter UI. Else you have also the possibilities to cut things, you have the clipper. The only thing is sometimes it can be a bit unperformant, especially if you do weird stuff and don't think enough about it. I'm a big fan of Go and Rust. So whenever you do something on the low-level engine, I hear both languages are incredible. How to create an instance on generic T, like T instance new T in Dart. Wow, Avinash, you come with questions. Like T instance new T in Dart. How to create it? Well, I would do that with a method actually. So you pass down, but you need to get the type. I think I did that on my Dart cones. Maybe you can have a look there, but I'm not pretty sure on how to do that immediately. Sorry. Then Ready Rust isn't for mobile. Yeah, it's not really for mobile. One thing I like about Flutter is the UI looks good. Yeah, well, that comes from the material part. I think that makes it very easy. Yeah, I think I should have made the Q&A part. Yeah, you're right. I maybe should finally include that. Cool. Yes, material is also in Flutter Web, exactly, because it is part of the Flutter framework consists out of two major design systems. The one is Material, which comes as a standard library into Flutter. And the other one is a dependency actually, which is Cupertino. And I see right now it's not really a dependency, it's only the icons that is a dependency. And I see here are packages that needs to be upgraded. So let's get an update. Fair enough. So, but the other one is Cupertino. The name Cupertino is only for Flutter environment. That means in Apple words, it is the human interface guidelines, I think. Guidelines, so yes, exactly. So it's the human interface guidelines, but this is actually how the Apple developers look like. But if we look for flutter.dev, then we will find the Cupertino part that we can implement. And both of them are existing in Flutter Web, and I think they are pretty good already. No, I hope not that someone made fun of you, Indratje. Your questions are really good, so that's all good. Did ChangeDependency help us? It's a very good question, Code and Repeat. So have a look, Flutter Dev. And let's have a look for did change dependencies. So called when a dependency of the state object changes. For example, if the previous call to build reference an inherited widget that later changed, the framework would call this method to notify this object about the change. After init state, it is safe to call build. Okay. So subclasses rarely override this method. Framework always calls build after dependency change. Some classes do override this method because they need to do some expensive work, network fetches, when their dependencies change, and that work would be too expensive to do for every build. So that means that not the widget itself has changed, it is the dependency to it. So for example, a service or something has changed, and with that we need to re-trigger the build. And the reason why we don't want to do that every time is because we have a heavy load work behind of it. Like, we don't know, a big JSON needs to be read. And thank you, Script Tank. Nice to have you and a membership program. Okay, so you actually nearly shouldn't use it at all as far as I've read it here. It could be useful in some contexts, but it is rarely used. So it should be done if you really, really don't have a different choice, I guess. Well, no, when stream QAs. Yeah, exactly. Well, he should be answered. No worries. I'm really happy to answer questions. That's why I'm here, right? So no worries. I have started playing a bit with Riverpod yesterday. That's a good point because the documentation is awesome. With an MVC architecture to isolate logic from UI code. Okay, it looks promising. Would love to see you make videos about it. I think I have done already something about Riverpod. I have not did it inside of the architecture, I think. Oh, what a great question. That's a cool question, Jason. What's the difference between architecture patterns, design patterns, and state management in Flutter? In what categories you will put MVC, MVP, provider, block, and please classify them. Wow. So let's begin with the first question, I think. So architecture patterns are everything that gives you structure inside of your code, right? So that gives you structure and understanding how your code is structured. So for example, I really love the layer pattern where you have different architectures, so you can read a lot about that. One architecture is architecture, for example, free tier is usually what I follow, but there are of course difficult parts, but it is a holistic view on your software. So for example, you have a client, a server, a database. This is an architecture pattern, you know. Then there are, of course, like hexagonal architectures, for example. A coworker from me is a very big fan of that. So you have import ports, you have adapter patterns inside, you have inside the domain pattern that works. And this is like the new shit, I would say. But at the end, you can turn everything also upside down and have then there your parts. So this is really where you have different repositories, ports, you have your app and domain logic. So it depends on where you want to put your logic. For example, here you would like to have the application or the domain logic inside of the center, the core. And outside you will talk with other things, like for example, databases and services and things like that. So, but you see, that is always a holistic view about the whole thing. Design patterns are, and there is from Martin Fowler, I think, a perfect website prepared for you for Refactor Guru. Is it this one? No, it's not this one, but I really like this page too, so that's good. Here you can see design patterns. This is something where people develop things in a certain way, and it is always the same way. Like for example, the adapter pattern, factory pattern. All of these things are coding patterns that you can see always because they are in every language, in every programming language, the same. So while the architecture was now very much on where your code lies, the design patterns tell you more on how to create code in a perfect way so that you can create, for example, these factory patterns with some code styles. So you can already see there is also real code behind it. So it's not more about where your code lives, it is about how you write code. And these patterns you can put into different parts. Of course, this is way too less to explain you everything, but I recommend you this page, and I can share that also. And what I also can recommend you is there is a book, the Book of 4 or Book of 5, I'm not sure anymore, which I read through my university degrees, and it's really important to know a lot of design patterns because they help you to write clean and readable code at the end, and it makes it very good maintainable usually. And state management on Flutter is actually when you want to rebuild your application. Sorry, not your application, your widgets. So state is something that lives in the UI usually everywhere, in every programming language nowadays that is, what is the name? Declarative. So that means your state is existent and has a certain I don't know, text, for example, and your UI needs to react on that. So that means your UI is only the function out of your state. If the state is changing, your UI is changing. And we need that in Flutter actually only because we have this stateful and stateless widget principle. But if we pass down through all the different widgets, always the whole state, it makes the code very messy. And with state management tools like Provider, Riverpod, and so on, we have an easy option to put that inside. And you called Provider and Block, for example, they are state management tools. MVP is minimal viable product. That means the smallest possible application to ship to your customers and has nothing to do with architecture, design, or state management. It's more like a general pattern. MVC is model view controller. And model view controller means you have always three things that are communicating with each other. You have the model that is like where your data is stored. You have the controllers that tells the models how to react and combine it with the view. So the view reacts on the controller talks with the model gives back the information to the controller, which gives it back to the view. As I said, all of that is just very small written, and I just got now very close to it, but I hope it answers a little bit the question. And if not, feel free to read a bit about it. It's really interesting and it's worth it because during your all-day work as a programmer, you will come to these problems always. It's always the same things, that's good, but you will have to, or you will get a better developer if you understand them better and better. Promise you that. It's not necessarily important to know all different architecture patterns that exist, but or all design patterns, but it's good that you know how they work and why you would need them. Script Tank is late to the party. Have a discussion. What's best to use as a database for movie app? That depends on how big the movie app is and how much data you will have. If you want to have it locally on the device, I would recommend you just use Hive, Objectbox, Shared Preferences. All of them work pretty well and shouldn't give you any issues to use. You have a custom SDK for iOS. I need to add those to the iOS in Flutter project. You know how to add framework in X? No, Okay, sorry, Avinash. I'm not sure if I completely understand. A Dart.io testing video, getting inputs from users, how to automate it. Huh. You know how to add framework in Excel? That could be Deepak. Good point. Maybe he wants to add it as a method channel and then call it. And if you need an input-output testing, getting inputs from user, how to automate it? It's a good question. I think you will have to take a look into. I'm not sure. But okay, besides of all that, and we talked a lot now again, and let's have a look on how to start with our Flash app. And I think macOS was ready already, so we have our counter app. You know this one, we have 1.2+. Should be fairly simple. And now my idea would be to read somehow this CSVs in a way that I can understand it here in Flutter and display it correctly. And for now, how can we start actually best way? I have no idea. Maybe remove first the homepage like it is now, because we don't need this counter. And what we can do is create a new stateless widget. Stateless. And we call it homepage, for example. Keep it as a stateless. Not sure what happens here. Fair enough. And now we can call that up here. Good. That's now empty. That's because this is just a container, so we can add a scaffold to it. And inside of a scaffold, we have a body which has some parts in it, like a container. So the scaffold is the default scaffold from Material. If we jump inside, we can also get a lot of additional documentation. This is the same documentation that you will find on Flutter Dev. So if you go to flutter.dev, you will find also exactly this documentation here. And the reason I usually use that is because now here I can read a lot about it. But what we also can see is that this scaffold, for example, comes from the material Dart. And that means this is a material package or a material element, yeah, that comes from the design system of Flutter Material. And with that, we know it's material design. And the scaffold has, for example, an app bar where we can pass our own app bar inside, which gets, for example, a title, which is a text widget where we pass in flashy or flashcard application. Good. Besides of that, adding some commas at the end and make this a const modifier. And with that, our app should look like already a little bit different. Cool. With that, we have now our app that we can update all the time. And the question is, we want to have flashcards. How would be the easiest way to create a card? I think if we use child inside of this container, and I think we don't even need this container, we can just use the card constructor. Also, card is a thing that comes from Flutter and Material. And inside of here, we could have our text, and this would be centered. And this text would be, for example, our flashcard word 1. So. And I would center the whole thing. And now we would, I don't know, have a padding or something just around that, just to make it a bit more visible. But what we can see now is we have a big card here surrounding everything, and the word would be inside. Of course, we can increase the wording or whatever, but for now, just keep it as simple as possible. So at the moment, we have only one word on one side. But now we would like to have this flip animation later, and we would like to flip it with one card to another card. And there would be some ideas, I think. Gotta go, meeting. Sorry, Minu, have a great day. Enjoy the rest of your day. So, we have this card, we have it centered. Good, and now we would like to have the option that we flip the card and show the other word. But actually, what should we start first? Should we first start by reading the CSV? And before I write too much, let's create a small to-do MD file. Or better, instead of creating a to-do MD like I usually do, let's go into our GitHub project. Reason is I would like to create issue based, and now I can create an issue, and every issue would be a to-do that we need to do. So read CSV files and understand the yeah, or generate cards out of it. So that would be my first to do. After that, we have more to do, I think. So we would need to create a card that is flippable. Flippable. Besides of that, we would need like a next button, right? So buttons for next and buttons for tick. Like I would like to have two buttons, I know and I don't know. So buttons I know and I don't know. So, and depending on which, we have to move the card then. The card that is flippable. Regarding to that, I would like to have that visible. Also, what we need is the connection to Google Spreadsheets. And with that, I think our MVP would be ready. Regarding to that, I would like to create a project that we call MVP. Flipcards or Flashcards. And why did I create a project? Because when I understand that right, we can connect these things to the project, right? Yes, indeed. And then we can, like, if this all is done, we have done the project. Sorry, Avinash, that is very specific questions. What you could try is asking them on Twitter and add some people from the Flutter team to it. Or what you also can do is asking it on Stack Overflow or getting into the Flutter parts. Can you please let me know about the Dart mirrors concept? I also did the mirror thing inside of the Dart Coens, but I am not sure how you would like to call it. Oh, that's bad. Sorry, shortly away, my water was dropping. Okay, yeah, that explains a lot of things. Thank you so much, Deepak. Hey, Ryan. Hey. First of all, I was throwing my glass of water on my laptop, which was a bit unfortunate. Also, I throwed it on my electro circuit, so hopefully we don't get shocked now. But besides of that, I started to finish this project and added it all to the MVP, so to the to-do, so we can work one by one above these parts. So that was a bit unfortunate all. So you can see that I'm a bit nervous now. But what we can do now is we can move this to in progress. And I think it's good to have these to-dos one by one, so we can slowly finish them off one by one without issues. And the next time when we come back to this project, we can just take where we have left off and we can work on that further. Also, if you have ideas on how to make this project better, feel free to jump into this project. I think it should be open already, so I will share the link. And inside of this project, you are, it would be more than happy if you create issues, if you add to-dos for me, if you help me with the code, and so on and so forth. Okay, so the first thing I would like to do is read CSV files and generate cards out of it. So the reason what does that mean is we have created already this test data. My idea would be now to read that as a CSV. And for that, let's have a look into pub.dev if we find a package that can help us with it, like CSV. Cool. A codec to transform between a string and list of values. The string must be comma separated. And I think that's nearly exactly what we need. Readers and writers for several file formats. Okay, Chrisley.io is not so motivated, so let's stick with the CSV. Let's have a look what we are doing here. Row as list of values, okay. List dynamic, okay. Because it can be anything. Every CSV row is converted to a list of values. Unquoted strings looking like numbers are by default converted to int or double. Okay. Okay, so we get a CSV back, which is dynamic, can be anything inside. Okay, but this package looks already pretty promising. The good thing is it's pure Dart native, it looks like, because it is allowed for each platform. I'm wondering that you could make a tutorial for Flutter code push based on the SDK I shared. I don't see your SDK that you shared. But yeah, I can have a look. Now I will add it to my list. Cool. So we take this CSV package here, and I told you that I'm not a big fan of packages. And usually I would say, okay, try to keep the packages as bare minimum as possible. But in this case, I want to read the CSV for now, and I want to create an MVP. So I want to have as fast the possibility to read this CSV as possible. So now I could write everything of the code inside of the homepage, right? I could write everything. Hey, here's an on-click button or an init state function for this stateful widget. We have a future builder maybe that directly reads everything out of it. But this is usually not a good idea, or something that I don't think is a good idea. And this would be a mixture of logic inside of the homepage. So what I usually do is I create a file that somehow describes what we want to do. I call them usually services, but there are multiple ways of doing that. So I will create a short my folder structure. Like for example, I would have, let's have it in 3 layers again. We have the UI, we have block, and we have the repository layer. Let's call this one block, because this would be our method that just reads the CSV file at the moment. Block for business logic in this case, not for block for the package that we know. So we could also just call that domain if you like. I think that makes it easier to understand the difference. Okay, and there is a service like read CSV files. Or read CSV, or CSV is maybe not the best name, but okay, keep it for now. Like CSV reader, we can improve it as soon as possible. So now this CSV reader wants to have now access to this test data, and then he wants to read Learn English and then lesson 1. Learn English should be like a card that I can click in our application later, and lesson 1 would be then where we can read it. For now, we keep it as simple as possible again and say we directly access the lesson 1 file and just want to read it now. Okay, how do I go further? Usually when I would make now a real project, we should write tests. Maybe we can also do that, but let me quickly think. I think tests would be a good idea. And in my the usual live streams, I don't write so much tests, but maybe we should change that now. So inside of here, we create now the folder structure exactly the same. So we create here domain, and we remove the old test. And inside of domain, we have our CSV reader test.dart. Okay, and inside of here, we can now write as everywhere our void main. This is our main function. And inside of here, we can now write, I think, group, is it? Which gets a description. In our case, it's the CSV reader. And the body is a function that we pass in. And now here inside, we have group and test, I think, if this is correct. Yeah, and we have here also our description. And this is, for example, what we want to test. So what we want, when something, then something. So, and inside of here, we can now pass in another function. We do that like this. And now it depends what we want to test. So if I would like to test the widget, like for example, if I would say if I would say I want to test the home page, if I click something, something happens, then we would write a widget test. But because I have this service now here that I class CSV reader, this service now is independent from the UI. We don't need necessarily to know how the UI behaves, and I can easily test that. So if I want, for example, get a CSV back or a string back, the question is, what do we expect actually here? So this CSV reader should give us something back, right? And what we can do is, if we write test-driven development, we should write here what we would expect back from the CSV reader directly. So what we can do is we first initialize the CSV reader, and we can do that as a subject, CSV reader, which is our subject. So this is the thing that is under test. And we create an instance of this CSV reader. We import the library, and with that we are now ready to go. And when I call now the subject dot and now the method that we want to test, so if I look inside, we don't have one. So let's read CSV, or even make it easier, read, what is the test data? Lesson 1. So let's make it very expressive what we want to do. And inside of here, we call that and go for it. Okay, this thing does nothing at the moment. So our idea is, inside of our test, we created that, and now we call this method read lesson 1. And we expect something from it. Because if we call that, we expect that we get something back, right? Or at least we should expect that. And the reason is now, what would we get? We would get probably a list of dynamics, right? If I have understood that correctly, from the package. So let's have a look. We get a list of dynamics is a row as list of values. Convert your string. Okay. List CSV. New string from iterable CSV row. Okay, or decode, we get an input, which is the file, and then we read it, and inside of that we use the input transform with a decoder, and then to list. And then we will get a list of what the row. How long this takes, I have no idea, to be honest. That's the reason why I take that, but I guess 10, 20 episodes, hopefully, like 2 hours, if I really invest time and I don't talk too much between, which is always the biggest issue if I create something. And if I write tests, usually it takes even longer. I hope that's okay for you. But if you think it's not okay, then we can also do it differently, that I only write this app and we make the live streams only if we have like a specific topic that I want to talk about. And regarding the tests, what we can do is if we go to the flutter.dev website, we can check out the docs for the testings. So what do we see here? We have testing. So, and we want to be a little bit in the unit tests at the moment. You can write Flutter test help. I'm a bit curious why this is not loading up. Is this new? Oh, new stuff? Didn't know that. No assertion tracker, Dart defined foobar, web renderer, device, plain name. Okay, no, this is just a Flutter test call. That's all good. What I'm more interested is now what the matches are, and for that I need the test utils, and these matches are any but Flutter or Dart test matches. So we have the custom matcher. Is argument error, is empty, is exception, is false, is list, is none, is empty, is not null. Okay, let's make it easy and say this one is not allowed to be null, is not null. So the reason why it's now red is because this read less than 1 is probably returning void, and it tells us it's not allowed to be void. Actually, what we want to get is a list of dynamic for now. And now this one is red because we don't return anything. So null is not allowed, cannot be returned by yeah, that's true, because this is not a question mark at the moment. So that would be the most easiest way to execute all of that. We run that, we should get an error. Exactly, so we have written our test, we have made it fail, and now we need to do something that it doesn't fail anymore. So, and it's the easiest way would be to just return a list, because with that everything is green. But you see, test-driven development can be very tedious if we do it with everything. So, but now let's head over and let's quickly write what we want actually to achieve. Inside of this read lesson 1, we want to get the CSV, and we need a file for that, right? So the first thing is we get a file, and this file needs to be from Dart, and we need now the file path to it. And now it's getting a little bit interesting because we cannot access it with direct access, because that would only work for macOS, I think. It would not work if we want, for example, get it in the Flutter. But we will have to think about it. What is memory allocated for mixin and class? Which one is efficient? I think both are efficient. So mixins is just a subtype of a class, because everything in Flutter and Dart is a class. try this type of long videos where we see you debug and code as you would work. Yeah, that's true, but I'm always feeling a bit bad because when I'm sitting here and try to code, I'm always, yeah, maybe I'm too slow, maybe I don't explain everything or things like that, but I'm happy you like it. So you use domain-driven architecture, TDD approach. How do you approach your projects at work? At work, I make myself, of course, a lot of different ideas. The reason is, first of all, I have to understand how the project that I'm coming into looks like. Maybe they have already an architecture that I don't know, and then I have to first read me into it, which usually takes some time. And first, if I really understand the project's architecture, I try to find the best possible way to help this architecture. So if the architecture is already perfectly, then I wouldn't do anything. I've never seen that before, but it could be that there are projects where the architecture is absolutely flawless. But usually if you're coming to a new project, you shouldn't start directly with coming with amazing ideas, because you first have to really understand what the people that were there already had in their mind. If this is already done and you know already what exactly should happen there, then you can go the next step and try to talk about these things. And after that, my personal approach is that I usually have, as I said, my 3 architecture layers, like domain, repository, and I think it is UI specific. And this has not really much to do with domain-driven architecture, because domain-driven architecture is also a wording thing. Like, for example, I think their domain models are usually called entities and things like that. And I find that inside of code structuring always a bit weird. So usually what I do is my domain usually has the names model inside, and a repository has the entity. Because from my perspective, an entity is the representation of the database structure. So if I, for example, want to have something out of my database, I get the entity. This repository here in Flutter, for example, is not the repository that accesses a database, but usually talks with a server in the background or talks with Firebase, takes care of that, and so on and so forth. And the UI is actually my Flutter things. So if I create a screen or something, you would have that inside of here, like screen, or I don't know. Yeah, good. I hope that makes some sense. What makes efficient importing a Dart file or adding the mix in? I don't think that makes a lot of difference, Avinash. If you think about these things as efficient, I don't know, it's like tomato. Thank you, Deepak. I throw the last glass of water for today. I have enough water, I think. But thanks for the idea. Still have it here somewhere about my microphone and things, so I hope it dries slowly. Good. So we have the file. I read it from libdomain. And I'm not sure if this will work now out of multiple reasons. I think to access a file, it's always bad if you want to write a test, because then you have to mock it and you have to understand where the file comes from. So if you want to do something like that, usually you would make it as a dependency. You get a file. So this would be not a read lesson 1. It would be something. Why can I? So it would be read lesson from file, for example, and then and then I don't even have to pass file, because from the file is clear here. And with that, I can pass it into from the CSV reader test. And with that, I can create a mock for that. So if I want to have a file, any file, I don't know, just create it quickly. So then I can just use that here and pass it into. And now I can make sure that there inside is a real dependency, for example, so that there is a CSV inside. And then this read lesson has no problem to read that again. Whew. Enjoy your work, Script Tank. No worries, peace. That's my job at the end, and that's what I really like about the live streaming actually. So usually I also try to keep it as 2 hours, but there are also crazy people on Twitch like Togglebit, who I follow, and he's always at 0.8 in the morning till 18 o'clock in the evening and talks all the time with the community. But that's ridiculous to write code and do that there. That's really hard. Okay. Back to my problem. So how does the package tell me how to get into it? So we want to get the row list, and I think there was one with the input. So we get this file, open read from the file. So what do we get? Open read. We get a stream list of integers. Okay, we really get the byte list there. Do we not have alternative ways? I think read as bytes, we can get as that. We can call it as lines. And then we can split it by comma. Why should I not do it this way? Why is the CSV package so much better? Can even make it sync. We get a list of strings. That means we get a list of all the comma separated parts. Is there a package for dependency injection? Yes, there are tons. I think Gedit is one of the most popular ones, and it would be the one that I would recommend. It's Gedit, I think. Yeah, this one. It's a service locator and pretty much known as a dependency injection tool. Can register singletons and so on and so forth. It's pretty awesome. Thomas Burkhardt created it, and he improved his documentation a lot in the last couple of weeks. And you can also use Riverpod for a dependency injection tool, for example, or provider. Okay. So we have the file. We want to read that file. We do it here with open read. The question that I have in my mind is, should I even use that package? At the moment, I don't see a benefit yet. Maybe it comes with a later package or with a later stage. So for now, let's remove that dependency, because in my head, what I could do is read the file, and we can read it as lines, and we get each line. I will call it now sync. Yeah, I will call it now sync. The only reason why I will do that is just to get all the whole file. That could be a very bad idea if you have a very large file. So in the finished project, this will not be the case, I guess. How to learn Firebase? The easiest way to begin with Firebase is just reading the documentation. Not GetStream.io, that was something different. No, firebasegoogle.com. And if you jump inside of here, you can read here something about the build, how the release works, and so on. Because Firebase is really a beast. Take your time, at least 1 or 2 weeks, to understand all the products that are inside of it, and don't give up too early, because it is really a beast of things what you can do with Firebase. It's not only a database. I think there are also, for each part inside of Firebase, there is also somewhere a video that you can use. Okay, and so now we get read as lines. So what happens? Reads the entire file contents as lines of text using given encoding, throws a file system exception if the operation fails. And in my head at the moment, it is like we get now all the lists. So like list or rows. Final rows. With that, we get now all the rows, and this is a list of strings. And now what I could do is I could take the list of strings. How does that look like? So what I could take is the rows, and I could map that. And I could say, okay, I get a row inside. And if I now just, this row is a string. And what I could do is just split it, and with the pattern of comma. And with that, I will receive now a list with the comma separated. Now we have a list, it's getting interesting, of a list of string like so. That would be our, all elements. So something went wrong. Probably I'm wrong. A value of type iterable set list string can't be assigned. Split returns me a list of string. I have to return it, of course, but still wrong. Okay. Try changing the type of the variable. Casting right-hand type to list string can't be assigned. It's an iterable. I have to make it a list. Also not. List set. Why is there a set in between? Where does that one come from? I create the split, the rows map. So we go over each element of row. And this returns me a string. String to list. And this list contains... Wait. If I remove that once more, let me quickly have a look. So this map gives me an iterable. So I call that to list, and with that we have a list back. So now we get a map dynamic to dynamic because we just returned this part. Okay, now I get it. Row to split, and this exactly keeps like that. So, and if I look now, it's a list of strings. Perfect. Good. So, and what does that conclude now? That means that we have our rows, and inside of each row we have the column. So to get a specific column somewhere in our list, we now can execute, like for example, if we think about our lesson once more and we want to access hello, we would get 1 because we go into the second row, which is 1 for the array, and then in 1, which would be hello. So to read that would be T 1, 1. So this would be the column. To make sure to understand that correctly, this is now a 2-dimensional array, right? Like a table at the end. And we want to access that element. Yeah, thank you, Kaz. Nesting into the... Okay, you see that already. Oh, thank you, Deepak, for sharing the link. So I think I should return a list of string. Yeah. I think, is that clear why this is a list of strings? And thank you for the mentioning for the TypeScript. I completely forgot. Cool. So with that, we have now our table actually. And what we can do now is we can return everything from this table. And one option would be to return the table itself, which would change that part up here to list string. Like so. So does that help us already? I think so, but good. This is all synchronous. Should be pretty slow, but can work. And with that, if we use the same text file, I think we should be fine. I'm not sure how tests behave with test files. I've never done that, so let's have a look. So Dart test with mock file. Flutter test IO, okay. Not really helpful, unfortunately. Mockito would be an option. I'm not sure if Mockito supports file creation. File. Test file will generate a file with the name based. Nope. No, that's just for mocks. What we could do is I could move that test folder here inside. And I think now it takes this as a main path. So if I would create this file with the file path to that, we should be good to go. But I'm not sure. We have to try that out. So if I do that, we want to copy the path. That would be... No, I take it from the repository root in that case. So, and let's see what the test does with us. In the worst case, it's red, and then we have to check once more. Of course, it's not null. Yeah. Oh, on the other side, why is it not null? So what we can do is now we expect, for example, if we pass 1 into it, hello, right? So if we read that, we get our table back. And if we ask for the element on 1, it's not is, can I say string? No. Is string passing? Hello? No, this is not how the matcher is working. So, let's see how it turns out. So now it crashes. So, and the reason is invalid value. Only valid value is 0 and 1, but got 1. So it seems that it doesn't access here something. So that's a good sign, because that helps me already to understand. Are you sure you can read raw CSV files like that? Is there no hidden header content or anything similar? I guess not. No, there shouldn't be anything. If we go here at pure text, we can see actually it is just that. It shouldn't be anything in between. But we have to make a look because I'm not 100% sure. So let's have a look. And how I can do that is I can make some breakpoints inside of it. And because thanks to our test that we have created, I press Command, Shift and T to switch between the file and the test file. I can run that with a debugger. And the cool thing about that is we're jumping now to the line, and now we can read all the different elements or information inside of our code. So for example, we can see, hey, did the file actually is our file that we expect? So raw path, we get some infos there. And if we take a look, we have even a row with 15 elements. And this is, wow, interesting. What is that? We get the test file back. Because I... Okay, so that was a mistake on my side. If you check out, we have taken the file path to our test file and passed in the test file. Which is a pretty cool thing, but it's absolutely not what I wanted. As we can see, this is now the CSV Dart, not the lesson 1. I do mistakes, geez. So, and replace that with this. Why is it taking always the CSV reader? This file, copy path, from root, go back, replace. That was weird. Okay, but now if I once more run the debugger, hopefully we should now see at least what is inside. Cool. And if we check our rows, we have now exactly these rows. We have German, English, and hello, hello. So that would mean we ignore the header, or maybe we show the header somewhere on the card on top, and down below we have hello, hello. That's already pretty awesome, because that's exactly what we want, right? So if I let that run, we get a test failure. That's good. So I can cancel that for now. So our test is still red. Run the test. And what is the problem actually? We expected hello, but what we got is a list in a list. So that means if I execute now this and that, okay, I'm generally surprised that everything works now. I'm usually not getting used to that in a live stream, that something works. So when we pass CSV file into the method, then it should create or it should return a table. So with that, we have made this test expressive. But what happens if we don't pass in a CSV file? We already tried that, and suddenly our method was still running. And we want to make sure at the moment, at least, that this only works with CSV files. So what we would do is we would go inside of it, and now I want to throw an error. So when we pass when we not pass a CSV file into the method, then it should throw an error. So completely basic, just because it's impossible that a non-CSV file can execute that. The path is wrong. Thank you for letting me know. That's true. But what we can do is now we can use this Dart file, for example. So if we use that, we want to be inside of here. And what we want to say, okay, now we validate. This calls passive programming. Inside of my method that I control, like this part, I make sure that nobody can enter something that makes no sense. So for example, if the file.ending, so we need to check the ending now. I don't know if this is easily possible. Length open read, stat watch write delete, write, no. So what we need is the, let me quickly check in Google. So Dart check file type, or ending actually. Extension is the right name, sorry. Good. So the idea is to path split last, I think. To use the path package would be an option, that's true. P extension P. Ah, nice, okay. Do we get any problems by using this? Is the path package usage everywhere? Yep. Why I would use this package now is because it is from the Dart team and it makes it easy to have path information to our project. And I would use that actually to make it myself easier, because if I would use something like ended for the extension, it could be something else, right? So we could, of course, do if file dot, do we get the name? I think absolute path or path. And we could say something like ends with, maybe, yeah. And then .csv. And then we negate the whole thing. Oh, I think that will always also work. Row, unsupported, error. Only CSV is currently supported. So we give our users or our consumers of this method, we give the correct answer and tell, hey, if you use something else than CSV, then there is no option for you and it will throw. So we run our tests. It should be red now. Yep, perfect. Only CSV is currently supported. Fantastic. Now we have to fix our tests again. And if we have something like that, where we have a thrown error, I think there is a matcher, throws, is it? No, not anymore. Throws argument exception. So you can see we get a different range of that, and we get an unsupported error. This is a matcher, and this checks our things. So, and a matcher for function that throw unsupported error, C throws F for object that this can be matched against. Ah, I could also do it differently. Okay. But that means if I make like this, it should be green now. So, I think I have to do something like that. Yeah. The reason for that is if I throw that inside here, our code wouldn't work anymore. So the expect needs a function that wraps the error, and with that we can now check against the unsupported error. Just to make sure that, or to check if this is not, if this is working correctly, if I would remove that here and we run it, Now the test should be read. Perfect. Because we expect that the closure is throwing us an error, but we receive something back. But we expect that this needs to be an unsupported error. So let's get that back into place. So, and we are sure that our test makes sense. Good. I think that's already a pretty good thing to see. So we have our English lesson, we have our CSV reader test. And with that, we can read actually our first CSV, which is pretty cool. So next step. Now that we get back a table from it, we can use that actually in our main. So for now, I would not start directly with a state management tool, because then we will have to do it always, right? I would take it as soon as we actually need it if we have multiple widgets. So for now, I would just keep it and separate for now the widget from the whole main screen and would put that inside of here. So inside of screens, we have our homepage, .dart. And as you can see, it is not really domain-driven development here in that case, because screens is something UI specific. If we would make it domain-driven, we would have something that is domain-specific. Like, I don't know if we would create domains for each different parts. But because I guess that this app will be pretty small, we will create it by screens. And inside of here, we passed for now this inside. It will complain a little bit. The reason is we have to import, of course, the material package again. And it's green already. And in our main application, we can now import the homepage and all good. So because homepage, I've written it here like that. And now I have to make sure that we keep our namings. So it will be home_page. And with that, we should be pretty good. Now I transform this stateless widget into a stateful widget. The reason for that is I want to keep a local state here inside. For example, for our headings, because the headline will be only once inside of our app. And after that, it will be used for each as soon as I have added it as a lesson. At least this would be my idea. But wait, before I do too much, let me quickly think. If I go back to my GitLab and have a look, I think read CSV files and generate cards out of it. Aha. Okay, so the generate card part is also of it. Okay, so that means we want to get the CSV file now, and let's quickly do that. We get a table, right? So inside of our state, we have like final table. And now the first thing that we have to do is calling the CSV reader. We need that as a service. Because I don't work now with a dependency tool, we can do it directly inside of the different widgets that needs the access to it. So here in the home page, we want to have access to the CSV reader. And with that, we would create CSV reader service equals, or let's call it also CSV reader. Make that final. And this CSV reader getting called and created an instance of. And I think I have a different name. Of course, it's all big letters. So import the whole thing. Good. So with that, we have now an instance of the service. Of course, we can use also get it or something like that, but I want to keep it as small as possible for the beginning. So now we have called the CSV reader, we have access to it. Now we need somehow to read the table. And now init state comes handy, because at the beginning we will not have any information, like final list of string will be pretty empty, right? So this one is completely empty. This is our result or table, or how do we call that? CSV results for now. Maybe we find a better name. And it complains now that this is null. So we have multiple options. I could enter here now this part and say, okay, it's an empty list in the beginning. And later we will change that to something more readable. And I think this is more, not a CSV result that doesn't say anything. This is actually a table of words, translations, learning elements, row. Yeah, it's not really a row, right? It's a table. It is a list of a list, so it's a table. Let me quickly think. So we talk about flashcards, and these are the information that we want to display as flashcards. So flashcard data, maybe? Something like that. And then we will get the flashcard header, which could be then the first line, and so on and so forth. So maybe this is a good name. Not sure yet, maybe we'll find a better name. But inside of our init state, we want now to execute, at the override, and super.init state. So inside of init state, we want now to call our function that starts to read the flashcard data. So, and because at the beginning it is empty, and as soon as it shows something, we want to use that in our app. So the first thing is we have currently a card, but actually we start with a circular spinner. Circular progress indicator. So that being said, if we go now to our app, we will see, we have a circular dependency. It's just a, You know what? I grabbed myself a glass of water and will be back in 5 seconds. Yep. don't forget to activate the mic. Hup. Oh no, boy. Yes, there is a perfect debug already answered. Perfect, perfect. Is boy not English? I thought it is, or is it means it's something else? Okay, so we have our circular progress indicator, the worst word that we have in Flutter, I guess, because I always forget it. So, and we put it in the center, and that means at the moment it loads our flashcards. And what we can do is creating a small row, not row, sorry, a column. And in the first column, I want to add a text where we just write inside, hey, your flashcards getting loaded. So there is something red. The reason probably is the const up here. Yep. And this is const, and this children's are const, but not everything inside of it. And now inside of this column, we can give a main axis alignment, which is center. Main axis alignment dot center. And with that, we have it down here. And between these two things, we can have a size box of a height, I don't know, 10 maybe. You know what? It's a new app. So let's create our constant file. Or design system.dart. And the reason, underscore, not a normal score, not kebab case. So inside of here, we want to have a class called insets. And this insets class will be a static class with different sizes of insets. So static small, static int small. And this will be, for example, I don't know, 8. Let's say 8. And then we have the next size is 16 and so on and so forth. Or let's begin with 4, 8, 12, and 16, something like that. And at the moment we call them all small, that's also not good. So we have medium, large, and extra large. So reason for that, really, it's a typo? Keep it. So, and the reason for that is if we use instead of this, for example, this padding up here, we would now use our insets dot. No, it's correct. Cool. So we import that. And then we can say, for example, we want to have a small inset between these two things. And this doesn't work because inner constructor is null. In a const, a value of type null. It's const. So still not. The reason is cannot be a double. Okay, fair enough. Sounds like we can like an easy fix. So go here and make it double. So, and with that, if we ever want to change the different insets, so for example, if you want to have it on mobile, you usually have a smaller inset between the things, but if you want to have it on a desktop, you have a bigger one, and then you can easily change that. Cool. So, and the benefit of these changeable things are that you don't have, you don't have to change it everywhere if you forget it somewhere, or you cannot forget it anywhere anymore. We call that large. And then the spaces are also always the same. So, how's that look? Like that. Static const small. Yeah, to make it const is even better. Thank you so much. Forgot about that, Cass. Const double, and now we can also add here a .0, I guess, just to make it sure that they know what it is. Good point. And with that, we have it here, and And now everything can be a const again. Yeah, you're right. That's way better. Cool. And with that, we have now everywhere the spacings. And if this changed now in this design system, for example, our small would be now 8 and this would be now 16 or something, then it will be changed inside of our app directly with the next hot restart, I guess. And that's pretty useful. But for now, this is fair enough. And we can start with the next step. So at the moment we have, I hear the sound. Ah, another subscriber. Hey, Move Media TV. Sounds like advertisement. Got some issues right now. Sorry. Where's my comments? Here. Cool. Yeah, why is const a good idea? Const is always great because it increases the performance, because during build time, these numbers are fixed and will be always reused. And that's a nice thing. Good. So next step, we want now to read our flashcard data. So that would mean we go to the flashcard data or call our CSV reader. And I think we have read first lesson from the file. And here we need to pass down a file with this path. This will be at the moment hard-coded, but this will change actually. To-do? No, I don't want to pollute our code with to-dos. So what I will do is I move that outside and read it from IO. One important thing is if we use here Dart.io, I think there should be a better possibility because we exclude Dart HTML. That being said is that we are not able to access files from HTML at the moment. So it would make it impossible to run this code it would make it impossible to run that code in web. But for now it's okay, but just to keep it in mind, with this line of code we destroy our possibility to run in web. Okay, this file now can be our test data again. I think what I can do is, I'm not even sure if this is possible, but I try it. If we try to get this test data, lesson 1, copy path, we want to get this one and pass it down here. Now it should read that and get this inside the flashcard data updates. So now we can change the behavior of this whole padding center, I think the whole part here. And we can say this is our loading part. So what we can do is we can create a method. If we don't want to always create a full widget, we can create a private method here. And that will contain our loading spinner. So what that means is here I will take this and press now Command Option M. And with that I can extract the method. You can also find that if you go right click, refactor, and then you have extract method here. And if you do that, you can now call that whatever you need. Like for example, for me it is build loading spinner. We could also create a whole widget for that, but I think in this case a method is more than enough for that, so nobody else is allowed to access it. And this is also the only area where we actually allow to use this loading spinner. This is now of course a lie, because I think this loading spinner can be used at multiple places, but for now, because we have also the text with the flashcards, I think this is fair enough and good enough. So I hope I don't bore you with my stuff, but I just want to make sure that I explain everything as good as possible. Yep. Oh, now I just... Okay. That's all good. Is this even... Reload? Ah, okay, all good. Good, so now we have excluded that. And the reason why is we only want to show that spinner whenever our flashcards data, is it the name flashcard data? Yep. Flashcard data is empty. I would agree with you, Cass, but the reason I'm not doing that at the moment is because it's way too small to really create an own widget for it. And I'm not sure if we want to recycle that more and more. But you are right. In general, I would also recommend to use own widgets for the parts, just because it is so much efficient and you can reuse it all the time. The reason being why it is not so efficient is because if you run this build method for this part, you will always run also this part. If you created your own widget for it and they are decoupled from each other, that would mean this part would not re-render. It would always stay the same as long as the app is running with the state. But you're right, maybe we'll change that also in a second. Okay, so we have the flashcard data is empty. If this is true, the expression to a function, so it can't be invoked. Ah, that's true. So this is a getter function. So if this is true and we don't have any values, then we don't want to show anything. But else we want to show a card. And how this card is visible, we will identify in a second. So. But for now, if I'm looking here, we are getting this, and actually it should show the card as soon as we get some data. So at the moment it doesn't work. The reason is because we have to, I think, hot restart once the application, and run into issues because we cannot read this file. No such file or directory. That makes also sense. The reason is the testing part has access to this test data inside of its folder. I think if we want to do the same, we have to copy this folder inside of the project name. So it could be that this already helps. And if not, we have to identify a little bit where the reason comes from. Okay, no. Then the other option that we would have is, of course, I have to copy the path and take this path first. So replace that and hot restart. No, still crashes. Okay, so this is also not possible. That means we need to pass in the whole path, not only the path to relative to the project, but the absolute path in the whole structure of the Mac. So if we replace that, it's a bit ugly, of course. And even this is not readable. Interesting. Operation not permitted. Aha, okay, that's perfect. So this is a good example. We try to access this file and operation not permitted sounds like, // is also a good idea. Thank you. So that means instead of, but where is it relative to? I have to make then ... and more, right? So probably we are now in screen UI. And something like that would be the correct one. No such file folder. We are in screen UI lib 1, 2, 3. 3 I thought would be correct. Okay. Anyway, we can check that in a second. But why this not works is the OS says us we don't have access to it. Reason for that is probably enlistments of the macOS. As the iOS, macOS has the info plist, and I'm pretty sure we are not allowed to access the file system. So let's have a look on macOS access file system. Probably info plist. Do you think it is a chmod problem or is it a problem from the info plist? I'm not sure. macOS programming access file system. What do you think why should I not be? So if we use the chmod, we would allow every program to access this file. That would be, of course, one option, or at least I think that would be an option. Oh, we can try that. You know, debug, let's try that. That's the testing. So if we go here and say chmod and we give sudo even chmod a plus r a means all plus read, write, and execute of file path. Why should I know execute? That would be chmod. I think I can even use the C777, right? I think it's the same. So what we do is we change now how macOS is allowed to access, or how programs are accessed to the files inside of our macOS. Usually I'm not a big fan of that, but for this demo, I think that's fair enough. Big passwords, cool. So with that, this one is now accessible from all programs. Let's see if this worked. And that it is not an entitlement issue. So we still get the error. Yeah, and we are still not permitted. So I'm pretty sure it has something to do with the macOS info plist. File system. I could add this as an asset. That would be an option, absolutely. But it would be against that what I want to do at the end, because when we want to read it from the Google source, then it's also not there. But yeah, you're right. Probably it's not even a problem. macOS, or no, Flutter OS. macOS access file. File exception, permission, operation not permission. I'm thinking somehow is related to entitlements. As I open a sandbox, it looks like the open files outside of the folders download. Okay, they app sandbox entitlement they removed. Okay, that sounds a bit odd, but okay, why not? We can do that. So inside of our runner, they created a file. Runner debug profiles. This is this one. Aha, and here's the sandbox true at the moment, and they want to make it false. Okay, that needs probably a complete restart of the app. I'm not sure if this is working. Let's have a look. But you are right, I could also add it as an asset and read it as an asset. That would be also an option. But yeah, then we need to have the root bundle again and things like that to get all the things done. Okay. Okay. So it has started the app. We should be fine now. I don't see an issue. And if I check again to my home page, this one, we see no loading spinner, but we see the card. And that has a big benefit. So is the card visible? I'm not 100% sure. So we need a child with the text. Let's take the text from our flashcard data dot. And inside of here, we have now a list of lists. So we are on the row. The first row is ignored anyway. So what we can do is taking the first element, and there we want to show the hint, so it's 0. And that should be already the value. The reason why is it complaining? Because he don't know if it's there or not. Aha. Okay, so I can do something like that, I guess. No. Because the card is const, probably. So, yeah. So now it's getting a little bit ugly, I guess, because now we try to access the parameter and he tells me, hey, it could be that this parameter is null. But let's keep it like that. Do you update the file path in pubspec.yaml? I don't think I have to, actually. I don't want to have that file as an asset. I want to really access the file system of Flutter to get these files, you know? That's the difference. So it's a bit difficult to add that in the pubspec.yaml. So what I want to do is actually go through the system settings. So, but as you can see now, we have the card. The card is not centered. Where it is centered? Why is it looking so weird? So we have to center also this part here. Yeah. So now, as you can see, the card is surrounding everything, and maybe you can increase the elevation to make it a bit more impressive. I don't know, something like this. But what you can see is now we have a card. So as soon as we have information from this file, we display it. It's not perfect, and we don't have now our whole application ready, but I think it's the first step that we want to have. And then besides of that, I would like to also, we have this padding. I think this is the standard padding for everything. This center would be a column surrounding it, because now we would like to have also below that a row, and this row has children with 2 buttons. Like, I make it very simple. We would have an icon button with the on pressed and an icon, which gets an icon from icons dot, I don't know, 1 for accept and 1 for decline. Let's see if we find something. No. Remove is the X, I think. No. So cross. So where are all the icon lovers? I need the icons. Plus icon we have already. That's the circle. But I need a check mark, maybe. Yeah, we have a check. That's good. Maybe with a circle. Cool. Make this one const. And now we can copy the whole thing, and we need still the cross. Is it cross? Tick. Something like on Tinder, you know, the one is red and the cross could be remove cancel maybe. Aha, you see, the cancel it is. So let's take this one, and this is of course here not correct. Here inside we want to have that. Good. Why is it complaining so much? So clean up. So children there, and here we want to have that. Good. Okay, this can be also. Yep. Okay, so we have a check circle and an icon for cancel, and if we have a look, it looks like this. It's a bit unfortunate. We have to somehow push the whole thing down. The reason is this row currently takes as much space as the center, but we want to have that one expanded. No, not Flutter explained it. So, and now we have the 2 buttons down here for yes and no. And because that drives me crazy, we turn that around. Nope. So, okay, so if I don't know, I press X, and if I press the check mark, it comes into it. Good. So what have we done now? We read the file, not the best and beautiful way, but we read it, and we have the icons at the moment. And that's already quite something, I guess. So we have read that, get this in this text part. Okay, I think there is still a lot of improvements that we can do in the next couple of streams, but I think the first part is clear what we want to achieve. So we can create these CSV files, and we can read them out. So even now it is already, the first step is done more or less, that we can get the CSV files. In the next step, we want to show first the hello, and after that we want to flip it. And I think flipping is at the moment not even possible. So the idea would be that if I click it or something, the whole card is flipping, and then we show hello on the other side. But if we are taking a look into our to-dos, read CSV file and generate card out of it, I think if I would rename that to card instead of cards, I think we would be already fine. What we of course could do for the next time is, instead of reading cards out of it, we would need to create some kind of model that contains our questions and our hints. And then we can maybe split up that table that we currently get a little bit more cleaner. Okay, but a long talk, but I have not made one single commit. My coworkers would be really upset with me. Usually I commit way more often, and I would recommend you to commit way more often. But what I will do now is I separate the things as we go along. So for the tests and this, I think that was necessary. The pubspec YAML, what we have changed, we have upgraded the versions. Okay, so we can maybe start with this, where we just have dependencies, upgraded versions of a default Flutter packages. So that's gone already. In the README, I was not even sure that we changed something. This is probably code highlighting and formatting. So I just roll that back because it's not really important. This removal is just cleanup. So cleanup, remove test that is not needed. Then we have the cleanup of the home page. So we can implement this and this. With that, we have access, but the problem is now we need the CSV reader already. So what I would do is I take these parts and the lesson 1 from the test and call it feature. Make it possible to read a CSV file and to read a CSV file from the file system. Good. That's not completely true because this entitlement is important, but we knew that later first. And this design system is something more general. So what I will do is the rest can be added and feature, and the feature is to read the CSV file and display a card out of it. Good. And after that, we push all these on our main branch. Usually I would create now a merge request and things like that, but because it's now a so fresh project and I want to first add some information, and I think you are all my reviewers, so I would made something very terrible wrong, please let me know immediately. But I think I have a lot of reviewers with you all. Okay, but what happens with this? It would be first now done. And I think we would have done our very first to-do ready. And with that, our flashcard project gets already in a better state. Okay, that's it for the first section where we talked about Flashcard project. And what I will do now is I have this week vacation, so I will make more live streams probably every day if I can. So don't be mad if I don't make it every day. But we want to work further on this so that next time that we can maybe get that from the Google spreadsheets and everything is open source. If you have any questions or any doubts on how I work or questions or feedback, please let me know. Also, don't forget, down in the comments below, we want to know the name of this project, so how the name should be. Flashy was already inside, and we had like Flutter Flash and things like that. So if you have a good name for this project, please let me know. And the most upvoted comment will get the name. We will find that in the README, and then we will change it everywhere so that the project is correctly named. Cool. Else, there is nothing else to say. Then thank you, everyone. Thank you, Deepak, and everyone else who moderated today again so greatly for me. It was very nice to have you all here, and I wish you a very nice evening and see you tomorrow. Bye.